unassuming CNBC article about in-office mandates is a shockingly perfect example of what we talk about here on this show often, right? A bias in journalism and a lack of media literacy, which we're trying to help with by uncovering stories like this. So you'll understand what we mean in just a moment. So for context, CNBC published this headline. Why a CEO says bosses should embrace coffee badging, quote, I don't hire people to watch them work. So look, understandably, that headline caught my attention because I love that attitude. Like that is a good boss, that is a good employer, someone who isn't like lording over you and like breathing down your neck, right? That's good. That's like a better work environment. So it caught my attention, I click on it. So the piece is about how a lot of workplaces these days have in-office mandates with bosses who get upset if their employees don't physically show up and instead insist to work from home. But the CEO that CNBC cites, his name is Frank Weishaupt. Weishaupt. He says that he's totally cool with something called coffee badging. Okay, coffee badging refers to the practice of swiping your badge into your office building, hanging around long enough to drink a morning coffee and chat with your colleagues, and going right back home to get work done. At workplaces with strict office mandates, it's seen as a way to get credit for being in the office while still enjoying the benefits of remote work. The strategy should be acceptable to bosses everywhere, says Weishaupt, who has more than 20 years of executive experience at small startups and large companies like Yahoo. If someone will benefit from the office's social interactions before needing isolation to be productive, let them do that. And then he proceeds to say, quote, we hire people to do a job. I don't hire people to watch them work. I do love the in-office participation when we get it, but I want it to be organic. And then finally, he says, the office has a role, but mandating that you must come into the office on this day at this time and leaving no earlier than this time, that is a dead concept. Monitoring employees' activities is a really slippery slope where you're going to lose trust. Okay, I agree with everything he said. Everything he said was accurate. Now, it's also true that everything he says should be considered deeply irrelevant to the reporter who penned this piece. Why do I say that? Well, let's go to the next graphic because Frank Weishaupt, CEO of Boston-based video conferencing equipment maker Owl Labs. That's it. We don't need to read any more. That's it. Why? Like, there is a conflict of interest here, no? He's the CEO of a video conferencing company. He wants people to work from home. So why do we give a damn what he thinks about remote work? He stands to profit off of remote work. So since there's a conflict of interest, like, am I crazy for thinking this, Cenk? I mean, I just feel like this is literally journalism 101. This is like the first thing you learn in journalism school. If there is a conflict of interest with the source, you don't use the source.
Look, there's even some chance it's an ad of some sort. I hope not, but that's so brazen. And it's like the CEO of GM says, these electric cars are terrible and you shouldn't bike anywhere and you definitely don't walk and don't go sailing. Yeah, I know he wants you to use the cars. I get it. I mean, at a bare minimum, you have to note that the guy is in the business of making sure that you can work from home at a bare minimum, but probably find someone else for the quote. But I mean, this kind of stuff happens all the time. And we've covered much worse instances of it. NBC having defense contractors on their air that are former generals, but currently selling specific equipment. And the most famous example is when they had General McCaffrey on and he's saying, what we really need in Iraq is the Abrams tank, that'll solve it. You're gonna be surprised to find out he was working for a defense contractor that sells the Abrams tank. So, I mean, this is mainstream media 101 and it ain't got nothing to do with journalism.
Like, what's next? Landlords for commercial buildings and office buildings weighing in on the matter? We believe that it makes a lot more sense for workers to go into the office and show their employers that they are serious about the jobs they're doing. But you're a landlord, right? Like you wouldn't interview a landlord of an office building on a story like this, except maybe you would. Maybe CNBC would. It's so absurd. And look, you just do a quick Google search and you'll find results like this. Owl Labs leading the way in smart video conferencing. And then, there's that sub portion that says, discover Owl Labs, the leader in hybrid work tech, 360-degree video conferencing with crystal clear audio and video for remote meetings that feel in person. They don't feel in person, and that's okay. They don't need to be in person. Like, we get the message. We're all talking to each other. We know what we need to do. Let's move on with our lives. It's gonna be all right. And they do include some advice to any bosses feeling unsure about office mandates. Trust your gut and do what's right for your particular workplace. The office has a role, but it's more task-based. If I have meetings on Wednesday morning that need to be in person in the office, I will be. And if I choose to be in the office, the reminder of the day to finish my work, I'll do it. Oh, the remainder, I should say. Sorry, guys. The remainder of the day to finish my work, I'll do it. But if I want to do it in another location, I should be able to have that flexibility. Again, another comment from Frank.
Besides which, they have to stop writing these articles entirely. Like, guys, we get it. If you are a company that needs people in the building, have them come back in the building. If you don't need it, you might also save yourself money by not requiring it, and your workers will probably be happy about it. So make the decision that makes sense for you, and everybody else let it go. And don't quote people that obviously have a vested financial interest in the story. These are not hard points, but again, a little bit hard for mainstream journalists to understand.